Hello, I'm Tim Smith with the Adams County Historical Society, and welcome to another edition of Monuments Monday. And again, we're featuring the monuments on Big Round Top and the importance of the place in the story of the battle. And we just walked up the old Veterans Trail that we mentioned in last week's video. And as we came up the trail, I'll show you a couple images of veterans walking up the trail. And between the spot where we're standing in the bottom of the hill, there is this very prominent rock that just kind of juts up out of the middle of the rest of the igneous rock pile. And in 1888, Henry Stewart of the Adams County Historical Society later actually stopped with his camera and took an amateur photo of that rock, so we thought we'd include it in today's episode. Now, we're standing in the area of the 118th Pennsylvania's position on July 3rd. Oh, I should mention that as you come up the Veterans Path, the granite steps that were once a part of the trail were removed in 1940 and used other places on the park, but you can still see the remnants of where the steps used to lead up the top of the hill, and there are many places where concrete is still on the ground that you once walked on to get up here. The 118th Pennsylvania is the Corn Exchange Regiment, and they're part of Tilton's brigade, and yes, they were involved in heavy fighting on July 2nd in the area we refer to as the Stony Hill. And in their regimental history, which I think is a later history, I think it was written in like 1905, they have a map that shows the position of the troops on July 2nd and 3rd, and they actually show the regimental positions along the side of Big Round Top here on their map, and I'll put a close-up of it in here so you can see where we're talking about. We're in the 3rd position of the 118th Pennsylvania. We also have a really nice view of their monument dedication, which I believe is September 8th, 1884, here on the slopes of Big Round Top. So during the ceremony, you know, hundreds, if not 1,000 people were gathered around this spot to honor this regiment. And also provide a map here of some of the breastworks on the Elliott burial map that are shown that lead up to the top of the hill that was constructed by this particular regiment at this location. And the interregimental history, they mention this position on July 3rd. At daybreak, the brigade was shifted to the rocky face of Round Top, and there relieved Vincent's brigade, now commanded by Rice. The strength and valor of that brigade, tested to the highest degree of soldier manhood, had saved the commanding eminence, and with it, the entire line from the momentary grasp of the enemy. Of course, they're talking about the fighting on Little Round Top. The wooded promontory, boldest of all the hills in the vicinity, was visible for miles in every direction. And they're talking about this area. It was without road or pathway, a mass of huge, round, smooth, slippery boulders. Securely manned, the hill would have been almost invulnerable against assault. And I think we'd all agree with that if you come up here and look around. To the natural defenses the position afforded, the troops relieved had added a substantial stone breastwork. And if you come up here and you take a walk out here and you look at these stone walls that were constructed by Vincent's brigade on the evening of July 2nd, early morning of July 3rd, and by the 118th Pennsylvania all day long on July 3rd, I guarantee you will be impressed. There is something like a stone fort right out here in this area. And, you know, they spent July 3rd on top of this hill, and on the early morning hours of July 4th, it was the 118th Pennsylvania that were ordered forward, went down the slopes of Little Round Top, and were the first to enter that horrible aftermath of the slaughter pen. And we have excellent descriptions of that in our Devil's Den book. One more spot I want to point out here in this video, not too far away.
Here we are at stop number 4. It's called Terrain. Look around, you can see the massive boulders all around Big Round Top. The pamphlet says that these rocks are 180 million years old and they're pushed up through the center of the earth by an ancient volcano.
I wish I knew something about the rocks here at Gettysburg. It'd be an interesting subject.
Here's a picture taken by photographer Henry Stewart in 1885. It says somewhere rocks on Big Round Top.
We got this photo from the Adams County Historical Society per the kind help of Woody and Fraz. And this used to be a very popular place for people to come and get their photo taken. Unlike now, this was right on the trail. There's at least 20 people up there, and as you can see, as we remove that photo, the exact same spot now is probably visited by 1 in 10,000 people in the same spot. And here it is, preserved for posterity.
Also, I'd like to point out that right now we are in the area of Gibraltar. Not Ken Burns' Gibraltar, but William C. Oates' Gibraltar.
So this area that I'm standing in, which I would guess is like 30 yards away from the 118th Pennsylvania Monument, a little farther up the path towards the top of the hill, is a wide ledge of rocks. And this area has come to be known as Gibraltar. Perhaps I'm the one who has been pushing that name for these rocks. But there are some historical photographs of these rocks recorded by William Tipton and others. And this area is described in a book by William C. Oates, the colonel of the 15th Alabama Infantry, who on July 2nd led his regiment against Little Round Top in the 20th Maine. And basically, in his book, he describes the advance of the 15th Alabama from Seminary Ridge, their encounter with Berdan sharpshooters at the base of this hill, and how he ordered his regiment up and over the top of Big Round Top, and then down to the fighting on Little Round Top. He actually mentions that the right flank of his regiment passed by the spot where the observatory now stands, the observatory. And that was placed in 1895, the metal observatory, and he wrote this book in 1905. So he's writing this in 1905, I realize. But he mentions that he halts his brigade up here on top of the hill behind us, or his regiment, he halts. And he says that while he's there, about 5 minutes after I had halted, Captain Terrell, Assistant Adjutant General to General Law, rode up by the only pathway on the southeast side of the mountain and inquired why I had halted. I told him. He then informed me that General Hood was wounded. Law was in command of the division and sent me his compliments. He said for me to press on and turn the Union left and capture Little Round Top, if possible, and to lose no time. Okay. He has no idea it's called Little Round Top. They have no idea where the Union left is. So that's just kind of stuff that's added in a little bit later. I then called his attention to my position. A precipice on the east and the north. Right at my feet, a very steep, stony, and wooded mountainside on the west. The only approach to it by the enemy would be a long wooded slope on the northwest where the pathway to the observatory now is. He's talking about right here where we walked up. And then he says this, within a half an hour, I could convert it into a Gibraltar that I could hold against 10 times the number of men that I had. Hence, in my judgment, it should be held and occupied by artillery as soon as possible, as it was higher than the other mountain, Little Round Top, and would command the entire field. So William C. Oates is arguing that he not attack Little Round Top, that the Southern Army fortify this hill and bring cannons to the top of the hill, and maybe from here they could create a defensive position that would outflank the northern line of battle with enfilading fire. And of course, I find that all very interesting. Captain Terrell tells him that is not his orders, and he's to continue on and press the attack and try to turn the Union flank wherever he might meet it. Now, unfortunately for the 15th Alabama, after they hit the Union line and sustain heavy casualties, they retreat back across the side of the hill, and they end up taking position at the bottom of the hill. I've often wondered what would have happened if the 15th Alabama would have a little bit of foresight and retreat back up to the top of the hill and try to fortify it on the night of the 2nd, and then on the morning of the 3rd day, when the Northern Army attempted to occupy the hill, there would have been a battle on the side of this hill at Gibraltar. Of course, looking back on it, we realize that William C. Oates is right, that this is one of the strongest natural positions at Gettysburg, and it could have been held by the Southerners. But that was not really in the plans of the high-ranking commanders of the Army that day. So if you get a chance to, come out here on the old Veterans Trail. We're actually now not far from the actual trail that leads from the Big Round Top parking lot, and a little bit higher than the monument to the 118th Pennsylvania, and you can visit Gibraltar. Now, remember, if you like the content we are continuing to supply on our YouTube channel, please like and subscribe.